Friends, DeFi is having a moment. Uniswap Labs web app and wallet connect you to the excitement. Swapping and bridging are simple, low cost, and lightning fast across 13 chains, including Base, Arbitrum, and Unichain, the new layer 2 network designed for DeFi. Thanks to deep liquidity on Uniswap Protocols, you get minimal price impact on every trade, now with even greater efficiency through Uniswap v4. Swap, send, on ramp, off ramp, and bridge into a bright future. Get started at uniswap.org. Uniswap Labs Layer 2 Unichain has been live on mainnet for just over 2 months, providing an elevated experience for users of Uniswap and similar platforms. Product lead at Uniswap Labs, Karys, joins us now to discuss how Unichain is enhancing the DeFi experience. Alex, welcome to CoinDesk.
Thank you. Awesome to be here.
All right, we're talking all about Unichain, and I just want you to know that it was launched on my birthday, mainnet, February 11th, my birthday, so...
Awesome.
We'll
have to send you a note on every anniversary now.
Yes.
A little happy birthday message.
Okay, I really look forward to that. Okay, talk to me. I want to talk about Unichain itself. Talk to me about, I guess, some of the challenges you are hoping to address with this chain.
Yeah, for sure. I think Unichain is built by the Uniswap Labs team. And I think to really understand why we needed to build Unichain, you really have to put yourself in the shoes of a Uniswap user, who we also think is sort of indicative of a DeFi user more generally. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners were around with us in previous bull cycles, pre-L2s, when you would go to an app like Uniswap and you try to do a swap, and it would cost like hundreds of dollars. It was ridiculous. And so our users really acutely felt the pain of L1 scalability in Ethereum. And so enter the L2 roadmap, which we are very excited about and continue to be supporters of. And suddenly we have this L2 landscape that solves a lot of those problems. Things were cheaper, things were more efficient. Our users were having a better experience. But there were two sort of new pain points that popped up with the L2s that we were using. So number one is a concept we call liquidity fragmentation, which is, if you imagine in the old world, we had all of these tokens, all of these assets, all this liquidity living on the Ethereum L1. It was really easy for users to just kind of swap between those assets. That's what Uniswap's good at. But in this L2 world, we peanut buttered all of those assets and all of that liquidity across all of these different chains. And now you get experiences like, well, I'm on chain 1 and I want to go buy an asset on chain 2. And I have to do this bridge action. I have to do a swap over there, and then I have to swap back. I'm paying all this gas. There's all this broken UX. So that's sort of the liquidity fragmentation that our users are feeling. And the second piece is around decentralization. So, it's sort of no secret that in order to get some of the scalability that we've gotten from the L2 ecosystem, we've had to compromise a little bit on centralization and trust assumptions. Most of these L2s are run by centralized parties, and users have to trust them a little bit. And we think that really the values that have made Uniswap, DeFi, and the Ethereum system successful are centered on decentralization. And so that's become sort of a challenge for our users. So if you step back and you sort of put your head in the kind of space of a current user of Uniswap, they have a choice. They can continue using the L1. It's going to be slow. It's going to be inefficient. Or they can go to the L2 ecosystem, deal with liquidity fragmentation, and deal with these centralization concerns. And they're sort of in a tough place. So our vision with Unichain is actually pretty simple. It's like, what if our users didn't have to make that trade-off? What if they could have all the liquidity benefits and all the great UX of the L1, but make it super fast and super efficient for Uniswap and sort of the greater DeFi space? And so that's sort of the guiding vision for Unichain.
Tell me a little bit more about the interoperability piece, because you outlined some of the challenges with interoperability there, very complicated, some compromise on security. How does Unichain solve for that?
So it's going to be progressive. It's going to kind of take some time. The first piece of it, though, is we are part of the OP Superchain ecosystem, and we're really excited to be participating in what we're calling Superchain Interop, which is an upgrade coming a little bit later this year, which is going to allow the different chains in the Superchain ecosystem to interop with each other basically instantly. And so there will be multiple chains running beneath the surface, but in the UX layer, you can actually basically abstract away the concept of chains. So you think like we're starting on creating this interop for the superchain ecosystem. And then we have our research team that is working on different ways that we can start interoping with different pieces of different ecosystems. And so over time, you get this kind of UX layer that abstracts away all of these chains.
You mentioned the users there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm imagining the users that you're talking about are mainly like traders and liquidity providers. And I know that in the update, there's this Tbased block building, and you're going to have to explain that for me.
Yes.
But talk to me about what that means for your users.
So this is an update that is hot off the press that we're super excited about. And it's really part of this sort of decentralization value that we really want to manifest with Unichain. So starting with, I guess, the problem that we're solving with this. So there is a portion of the sort of blockchain piece called the builder. And what the builder is doing is it's taking in transactions from across the ecosystem and it's ordering them into blocks. And this is a really powerful role because if you change up the order of blocks a little bit, you can actually extract a lot of value in the form of MEV from your users. And right now in L2s, that process is happening essentially in a black box. So we call it like the trust me bro, where you sort of have to trust the operator that they're not extracting value from their users, which we think is counter to sort of DeFi principles. And so the TEE is this really cool piece of technology, which you can think of as just like a server that has a really special property, which is you can externally prove things that are happening in the black box. And so external users can actually prove that we are following fair ordering rules within the TEE, even though it's continuing to be run by potentially a centralized party. So we developed this in working with our friends at the Flashbots team who are going to be running this infrastructure for us. And although it's not like full decentralization, we think verifiability and transparency are really important steps for the L2 ecosystem to move towards a more decentralized world. And we're really excited that this is sort of just the first piece of infrastructure that we're starting to run in TEEs. And we want to start expanding more and more. So even if we are still fairly centralized, at least you don't have to take these sort of trust assumptions with folks who are running the actual infrastructure.
You know, we started this conversation talking about your users, talking about the need for this chain that's really focused on DeFi users. And centralization and DeFi, I think, don't often go together, right? So talk to me a little bit about managing that with your users. Have there been any challenges?
I guess like have there been any challenges in what way?
Well, I guess, you know, in just the narrative, right? Like people who are participating in DeFi really kind of believe in that decentralized ethos, right? And so has that centralization trade-off that you mentioned at the beginning of the interview been more of like a narrative challenge in talking to your users?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's one of the like main concerns of moving to this L2 scaling roadmap. I think like Vitalik a while ago came out and said he's not going to talk about any rollup that is a stage 0 rollup. And so, yeah, it is like a real concern for the ecosystem. And, you know, we really want to be the ones who are leading the charge on decentralizing that L2 ecosystem. So it started with, you know, we were the first rollup to come out as a stage 1 rollup. There was a lot of technical work that had to go into getting there, but we believed that that was sort of the bar we had to clear if Uniswap was going to release an L2. And what we've seen now is we've sort of set the standard that for future L2s coming out, basically have to clear that stage 1 bar to start. We're continuing that with, like we talked about, more and more of this infrastructure being transparently run in TEEs. And then finally, we think the kind of like last piece of this is really getting the community more involved in the running and guaranteed security guarantees of the chain, which is why later this year we have coming what we're calling the UVN, the Uniswap Verification Network, that is going to allow community members to stake their Uni tokens and basically do work to further ensure the security and decentral of the chain, much like happens on L1 right now, and earn potentially rewards for doing that. So we're really like building out this roadmap in a way that we really think will push Unichain forward towards decentralization and hopefully bring the entire ecosystem with us.
I want to come back to the users again and talk about some of the advantages that come with Unichain. What are the advantages that liquidity providers and traders have on Unichain that maybe they didn't have before?
For sure. Yeah. So I think we can kind of split into two problem areas, and like we could go through tons and tons, but I'll sort of highlight a few places. So I guess number one for traders, so these are probably people who are sort of like swapping. One of the big like pain points in the ecosystem is this concept of MEV, where third parties are sort of extracting value from trades from users. And so with what we're calling how we're ordering our blocks and also how we're putting them in that TEE actually gives really strong guarantees about how blocks are going to be ordered and allows teams like us at Uniswap to develop protocols that sit on top of the chain and actually return MEV back to swappers instead of allowing it to be extracted by third parties. And so through these mechanisms, users are going to get better prices and they're going to get much more money back for their trades, which we think is sort of what everybody wants, better returns. So that's sort of like the swapper side. On the LP side, again, what is an LP trying to do? They're trying to make money. And in other ecosystems with slow block times and these sort of inefficiencies, it's hitting LPs. They're making less money because they can be arbitraged very easily. And so we have a great paper that we published, I think in the middle of last year, that talked about how just reducing block times actually increases LP profitability. And so that's why we came out from day one with 1 second block times, which is one of the faster L2s in the space. And coming very soon, we're going to be moving to 200 millisecond effective block times, which is just going to increase the LP profitability and make Unichain the most profitable place for an LP to do their LPing actions.
Now, throughout our discussion, you've mentioned a few different milestones that are on your roadmap, but talk to me about what we can expect next. What are you building towards? What's that gold star?
Yeah, so I guess coming up on our roadmap are some of the things that I mentioned, but I'll go into a bit more detail. So the first thing that I think is coming next is the use of flash blocks, which is what I was saying, these 200 millisecond subblocks. And so we'll move our effective block time from 1 second to 200 milliseconds. I think the important caveat there, though, is we're not just kind of juicing up our servers and making it go faster. We're, again, doing this in a decentralized way where the infrastructure for running that is going to be done in a TEE. And so we're not just sort of like throwing resources, centralized resources at the problem. We're actually doing this in a way that is much more DeFi aligned. So we'll have the fastest block times with these decentralization guarantees. Coming up next earlier this summer is, like I talked about, the Interop launch with OP, where we'll be releasing a bunch of UX changes that are going to make this liquidity fragmentation issue much better across the superchain and then beyond. And then finally, coming a bit later in the year is going to be that UVN launch, where users can actually start participating. And with each of those, you can think of them almost as like their own little branches that will have all sorts of new and exciting innovations coming out of them. So we're super early and things are looking great so far, and we're really excited.
Alex, thanks so much for joining me today, and I look forward to following the journey.
We'll see you for your birthday next year and the anniversary of Unichain.